Yo, what up guys? So one of the biggest questions that I'm asked about as of lately is whether or not Poison and Umbral Spirit is better than Lightning Infusion and Thunder Spirit. So today I wanted to go over that. Let's start with Poison first, right? Let's talk about the pros and cons of using Poison. Also, before we start, I just want to point out that there's like 80% of you guys that watch these videos that are not subscribed. I try to pump out as much Throne of Liberty, as much Spear Dagger content as possible. So if these videos have helped you out and you enjoy them, please consider subscribing. First off, the main pro, and probably the biggest one for using Poison, is that if you are hitting the right target, and the right target, I mean like someone that's using evasion, right? That's not using endurance or whatnot, and preferably someone that you could hit, right? Not too much evasion. You will absolutely shred that target, okay? Poison and Umbral Spirit does so much damage to people that aren't tanky, that just have like evasion. It's crazy. You will delete that person so quick. It's kind of reminds me of the T1 meta when spears used to bounce off of everybody. That's how fast you will basically delete someone with Poison. So it works really well in that area. And really the only other pro I can think about for using Poison and Umbral is that in the Dagger Mastery Tree, there's a lot of things that kind of support it, right? The Mastery Tree really supports using Poison for whatever reason. As you can see here, Venomous Edge, which is, you know, probably the most important passive to pick up, does up to a total of like 60% extra damage if you're at full stacks with Poison, as long as you get a melee heavy attack. So it just, they really promote using Poison. Like you can get this Murderous Energy, gets enhanced. You can get the Strategic Exchange, which does more Poison damage on your stacks. Yeah, it's like whoever made this Mastery Tree for Dagger really wanted us to use Poison. And I could see why. I mean, Poison does a lot of damage on the right targets. Now, the cons to using Poison and Umbral is that it will struggle when you are fighting against tanky or players that have like endurance, right? They have a lot of endurance, because Poison does nothing to shred the target's armor or whatnot. All it does is just promote extra damage, right? So somebody who's naturally tanky or has a lot of endurance, you're not going to shred any of it. You're just going to try to do as much damage as possible. You're not going to crit, you know, and it struggles in that area. Another con to using Poison is that it is very focused around stats, right? And primarily the melee heavy attack chance. You want to really focus on getting a decent bit of melee heavy attack as well as crit chance. The reason for that is in the Dagger Mastery, like I said, the most important one is this one. And it only procs that extra damage if you get a melee heavy attack, right? So you want to build a good amount of melee heavy attack for Poison to really do its maximum. And really the last con that I could possibly think about for Poison is that it's a smaller AoE and it's always around that target that you're looking at. It doesn't really bounce like really far like how Thunder Spirit does. But overall still has AoE, so still really good. Now let's talk about Lightning Infusion and Thunder Spirit. The main pro, and I think the biggest one for Lightning Infusion, is the fact that it shreds a total of 400 endurance if you're by yourself. You can get up to 800 if you have like a friend doing it as well. So if you have basically your 20 stacks on somebody and you have somebody else's 20 stacks, you can shred up to a total of 800 endurance, okay, from the enemy, which is a lot. In an endurance favored meta, being able to shred a total of 800 endurance is crazy, okay? It's huge. It's going to mean so much, and people are only going to get tankier when Resonance comes out and whatnot. They're just going to keep getting tankier and tankier, right? So that's why Lightning Infusion has a really good pro by shredding and reducing that amount of tankiness from the player that you're trying to hit. And really the only big pro that I can think about for Lightning Infusion is that Lightning Infusion and Thunder Spirit together have a solid AoE, okay? It's pretty big. It says 5 meters around the target, but you've seen it in action. You've seen when somebody uses those two and they throw it into a clump and you see the lightning go everywhere. It is a very, very, very large AoE, okay? So you can basically delete an entire clump if you hit the right targets. So that's really the biggest thing about it, is like the AoE is very, very, very large. So the cons for Lightning Infusion and Thunder Spirit is that, I guess if you want to compare it to Poison and Umbral, it technically does lower damage, right? But that could be argued because with Lightning Infusion, you're shredding the enemy's armor. So you're essentially doing more damage. So I don't know. I don't know if it technically is a con. It's supposed to technically do less damage, but you're shredding. So I don't know. And really the only other con that I can think about for Lightning Infusion is that in the Dagger tree, opposite to Poison, it doesn't really have any support in the Mastery. There's a couple of them in here, like this one says it enhances thundercloud effects, but it doesn't really do anything. Same thing that goes for strategic exchange. It says it makes thundercloud stacks do more damage, but thundercloud stacks don't do damage in the first place, so doesn't do anything. There's not really any kind of node in here that really promotes Dagger. Lightning Infusion. So it's weird. You don't get a lot of support from it at all. So even after getting full mastery, there's nothing that's going to buff Lightning Infusion and Thunder Spirit. It's more so just going to be your overall stats and damage and whatnot. So with all that being said, I guess the ultimate question is, would I rather be using Lightning Infusion or do I want to use Poison? In my honest opinion, I'm probably going to stick with Lightning Infusion just because it's an endurance favored meta, and as the game keeps going on, people are going to keep getting tankier and tankier, right, with more gear, resonances and whatnot. So that endurance shred is going to be more and more and more important. However, I probably will play with Poison a bit more. I'm not saying I had the best Poison build, so there might be some hidden tech out there, that Poison actually has where they do so much more damage. So I could be completely wrong. I'm just going based off of what I've tested so far and overall, like what I'm thinking the meta is going to lean towards. I think it's just, like I said, it's going to be an endurance favored meta. I just think Lightning Infusion overall is going to do more damage. But don't let that convince you, because Poison can be extremely fun to play. And like picking Poison is not going to technically hurt you. You're still going to do a lot of damage. You're just going to have different target priorities, if I were to guess. But it still does a lot of damage. So don't think that you picking Poison because you like that playstyle, it's going to hurt you. It's not. Anyways, hopefully I kind of summed that question up for you guys. I know I get asked quite a bit, so hopefully that kind of answers your questions. If you have any questions or you want to, maybe you have a different Poison or a different opinion that you want to voice, let me know in the comments down below. I'd really like to hear your comments. And are you using Poison or are you using Lightning Infusion? Anyways, I think that's about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.